Hello, I'm Dr. Pierre Samaan, and it's wonderful being back with you in this series that we have been excitingly talking about unmasking addiction. An awful lot to talk about in this area, so I'm limiting, only saying so much that I can say in such a brief amount of time. This is a 11 you might say an 11-month class kind of squashed together in very brief form that is going to help you to understand addictions a little bit more in revealing some of these things about addictions. But today we're on the brain on drugs, part 3. We've been talking about what drugs does to the brain, a whole lot of things, and especially a whole lot of things that we haven't been able to get into. But we want to unmask addiction in such a way that it makes more sense for you, but also that you can pass it along in perhaps helping a loved one or someone that you know that may be having some difficulties. And certainly this isn't the solution, these things that we're talking about, but this helps us to get started and perhaps call a professional, call a treatment center, contact someone that can help give that added help that's needed for those that are having greater difficulty than just an occasional fling with a drug. And it's never occasional, I should say that. Occasional means, once in a great while. Drugs just doesn't work that way. It keeps you wanting more, and more is never enough, and therefore you become, we could say, a glutton for it. Once is fun, twice is less fun, and 3 times is harmful. It's going to cast a great deal of problems for you. Well, we're talking today about the brain and uppers, those things that are stimulating, and identifying the effects of drugs in the brain will break down this multiple substance areas. There's so many substances out there. It's just easier to break it down into 3 categories. And so we're not going to get into every drug, every possibility of whatever is going to be stimulating or not. But we're going to get into those categories, which will help you then. If you want to do more research, you can do that. But we're talking about uppers in this first part of this video. Uppers are those stimulants, those things that make you feel really up there, really elevate you, feel good. And I say feel good because it's only for a short time. And then downers, we'll be discussing downers the next time. Downers are those things that, of course, bring you down. And some things you might think are stimulants, but they're really not. They're really downers. And we'll be talking about that. And we'll also be talking about all-arounders. All-arounders are those psychostimulants or psychedelic drugs like LSD and so on. And they will have a combination effect, sometimes stimulant combination with downer combination, and then a psychedelic effect as well. Today, we're discussing the stimulating substances, often called uppers, and the effects of uppers on the brain. Uppers is a description used to explain the material that elevates the brain and body activity and is commonly known as stimulants. Uppers are, those things that hey, I need a little more energy. Hey, I need more excitement, or I need to look like I'm in control and all that. Those things kind of bring you up. Stimulants differ from very robust, that is very elevating, to not so elevating. Maybe amphetamines might be in that category. They're weaker. Let me step back a minute. Amphetamines are not weaker, but they may be weaker than things like crack and so on. And then you have the weaker stimulants, like, what do you think that might be? Coffee, nicotine, and something, a few other things. They're not as strong, and so they're more socially acceptable. And so we have our coffee. Some people smoke, and please don't smoke. Nicotine has proven to be the cause of the most severe long-term health problems, and people don't consider that. They think, well, crack or cocaine or what, that must be worse and all that. Well, yeah, that's bad, and it has damaging effects, and maybe more severe immediate damaging effects to the body and brain. Nicotine has a longer damaging effect, more deeply felt over a period of time, more severe, in other words, causing more severe health problems over a period of time. So it's very subtle, and it draws you in, which is why the companies selling those products appeal to the children, appeal to the youth, the teenagers, to get them started. And they know once they get them started, many of them are going to be hooked in some way. And then those long-term effects piling on over the years until you can't fix it. And just stopping many drugs, your body will heal over time, and depending on how severe you use those drugs or abuse those drugs. Nicotine, the damage just keeps going on. So that's why it's considered more severe. You can't reverse that. Like a rocket launching, stimulants generate chemical thrust, stimulating chemical compounds throughout the body and brain. Now, in this series, I may say body. Whenever I mention body, well, the body is including the brain. So the body and brain is affected. When I say body, that means the brain as well. The stimulation boosts the brain's reward and pleasure centers into intense action. And sometimes those intense actions are so strong that the person may seem out of control. They may feel out of control, constricting the blood vessels, racing the heart, raising the blood pressure. That's what happens when abusing stimulants occurs. And if you notice in the picture, that's called the ring of fire in the brain, what the brain is looking like, and that those parts of the brain there, those organs in the brain, they're running at maybe 95% capacity when they should be blue in this picture. This is a SPECT scan of the brain, and it should be pretty much blue. Look at all that red. That's just way too much. They call this the ring of fire. This is from Amen Clinic's work, Dr. Daniel Amen, his work. And if you go to their website, you'll see many more pictures of the brain on stimulants, the brain on downers, the brain on all-arounders, and he has a lot of material on that. But this gives you an idea of what it looks like when the brain is overstimulated. So this is commonly an ADHD ring of fire picture. And of course, we know ADHD and the hyperactivity part is stimulating. The brain is stimulated to a point that the child just has trouble controlling. And the adult. Let's not forget the adult that might have a stimulating issue in the brain, or the drug user with that stimulating issue in the brain, perhaps a meth user and so on. In his book, Uppers, Downers, and All-Arounders, Doctor of Pharmacology, Darryl Inaba, identifies 7 central nervous system stimulants, or uppers: cocaine, amphetamines, stimulants, that's plant stimulants that come from plants, caffeine, nicotine, psychostimulants like ecstasy, they all have a negative effect on the body. The use of stimulants triggers an electrical and chemical effect in the central nervous system. Now, the central nervous system is made up of your brain and your spinal column, with those nerves extending out from the spinal column. And so the brain signals the release of energy chemicals, hormones, and adrenaline neurotransmitters. Uppers disrupt the usual ebb and flow of chemicals, blood, and charged particles that energize muscles and maintain alertness. And 24-hour mind and body rhythm is also disrupted. Circadian rhythm falls into that category. So when that blood is disrupted, if we look back at the picture of the ring of fire, that added stimulation that occurs there is disrupting not only where you're seeing, but where you're not seeing also, because that is pulling energy away from the rest of the brain. And as it pulls the energy away to use it in wherever it's going to be used, the rest of the brain is depleted in what it needs to go forward in taking care of your daily activities. Sometimes the body needs extra energy. When you're exercising, when you have sex, battling, or arguing, those are typical needs for energy, and that's normal. And so the body says, okay, let's produce more energy, but it does it in a natural way. And typically the body absorbs the excess energy sources within minutes, and the stimulation reduces and goes away. Think of driving your car. If you're an adult, you know what I'm talking about here, and you had to hit your brakes really hard because somebody just pulled out in front of you and you just missed hitting that car. Well, you know what? If you hit it hard enough, if it was scary enough, you're gripping that wheel. You just had a sudden rocket launch of stimulation throughout your body. And you're gripping that wheel, and all of a sudden you realize, I can't let go of the wheel. What's happening here? You got to pull your hands away from the wheel for a moment. And your heart's racing and all that. And that is a normal reaction to something that's very stimulating, very fear-invoking, or even terror-invoking. But you know what? 3 minutes, maybe a little longer, the body absorbs it because it was natural. The body takes those takes the adrenaline and the sugars that are forced through the muscles to give the muscles strength, and it absorbs it. It waters it down in the bloodstream, and eventually you secrete it. But as it absorbs, okay, I can breathe now, I can relax, I'm alive, and you feel fine. And you go on with your day. Typically, that's the way it happens. However, adding uppers brings excess energy. So now imagine that energy, but now you take something that's going to even elevate that energy even further, causing what? What do you think it's going to cause? It's going to short circuit your central nervous system. It's like a wire, an electrical wire with the insulation around it. You send too much electricity through that wire, it's going to burn that insulation. You get little holes in the plastic insulation because it got too hot there. And what does that do? Well, that reduces the energy flow through those electrical wires in the future, as well as making it dangerous if you touch it. But that reduction is not being fixed because you can't fix it once it's been damaged. Yeah, there's a natural fixing that may occur over a period of extended health, extended sobriety. That that works, but if the damage is too much, if there's too much of that stripping of that insulation occurring in the wiring of your nervous system, you may never get back to that place that you were before you started abusing those stimulants. More potent stimulants such as methamphetamine and crack, cocaine, keep chemicals in circulation by blocking their reabsorption and metabolism, thus greatly exaggerating the stimulating effect. So think of a sponge. It soaks it in the stimulation, and it holds it, but eventually it dries out, it's squeezed out. What happens then? The sponge goes dry, right? Your energy goes dry. As the process continues for hours, even days, it supplies the body with an enormous amount of excess energy, like the sponge holding it in more and more, but it needs to go somewhere. It's got to be released somehow. It's not uncommon for a meth abuser, methamphetamine abuser, to stay high for 3 to 5 days without sleep, only to repeat the event several times. Whoa, I don't know how they could do that, but it's not them doing it. It's the drug that allows them or makes them or, you might say, encourages them to do it. When only taking uppers occasionally, the body has time to recover. Even with occasional use, stimulants can have what we call a cascading effect. Now, if you think of the word cascading, like a small little avalanche, little rocks falling down the hill, well, over time, those rocks begin to tear away at the plant life, tear away at the soil. And if they're big enough, knocking down trees. And over time, it strips the mountainside. No more good stuff on there. No more good stuff left in the brain when methamphetamine is used and abused. So cascading effect that tears down the overall health of the brain, the body, your identity, your character, who you were made to be is gone. Long-term continuous or heavy consumption of uppers depletes energy supplies and the body's reserves. As a result, the crash is followed by withdrawal symptoms, sometimes flu-like symptoms, and depression that lasts for days, weeks, and sometimes months even. It's not a natural depression, and it's not a type of depression that may come from using downers or abusing downers that we'll talk about next time, but it's a different type of depression due to the exhaustion of the body, the complete exhaustion of the body. Crash severity depends on the length of use, stimulant strength, degree of biochemical disturbance, and pre-existing mental and emotional problems. So there's some variables in there. Because tolerance occurs, the feel-good of the high significantly reduces over time. It's probably one reason why so many get addicted to it, and certainly, some actors, Hollywood people, or often the music industry, especially years ago, they would give them stimulants to get out there and perform, but without realizing the damage it was going to do to the performer, because over time they were going to build tolerance, they were going to need more, and over time depleting their energy, but also depleting their, we could say, intellect. It dumbs you down when you're crashing. It dumbs you down when you're not using. Yes, when you use, it stimulates. I can think better. I have a clearer head. But over time, I need more to have that clearer head. I need more to think better. and the crash becomes greater, deeper, more damaging. But the fear of the crash becomes more significant than the void of intoxication leading to out-of-control abuse. During these periods of being out of control, many stimulant abusers will lie, cheat, steal, or kill, even if it goes against their morality. I've talked in the past, I've spoken to in the past so many parents who are just brokenhearted because they don't recognize their children anymore. Because those children or teenagers, usually it's the teenagers or young adults that have gotten involved in stimulant use, and they're not the same persons, and they're robbing and they're stealing from the parents, and some committing violent crimes, and the parent thinks of their child. Naturally so. They love their child, so they can't put it together. This beast of a person compared to this loving child that is in their hearts. It's heartbreaking to talk to parents having to deal with that, and many of them won't. They don't want to see the beast. They can't. It's too upsetting, and so they maintain that image. No, that's not my child. My child wouldn't do that. No, my son or daughter, they wouldn't be that way. Somebody forced them into doing it, or someone else's fault, or whatever it might be. It's heartbreaking. Don't let that happen to you. Don't let it happen to anyone you care about. Intervene if you see there's some issues going on. Don't be afraid to talk about it. Afraid you might lose a friend if you bring it up, because you know what? You might be saving a friend or their child or someone else by bringing it up. And in the long term, there's a blessing there that comes out of that. The stimulant users and abusers experience disturbed mental and emotional state of mind, enhancing and disrupting the normal brain flow of neurotransmitters, increases self-confidence, produces euphoria, and makes the user feel omnipotent or all-powerful. Well, that's the high. That's the upper part of that. However, continued use leads to a decline. That decline is of mental performance and favorability. It's a decline that you just see that person getting worse and doing things that make no sense, to others or people that knew them for a long time. The user or abuser becomes more irritable, assertive, talkative, paranoid, restless, sleepless, and sometimes aggressive. So usually you can tell, gee, this isn't normal for this person at work to act this way. They've always been so patient and good in problem solving. Why now you talk to them and they just snap at you? Well, they're snapping for a reason. Now there might be other stressors going on causing that, but if it's happening over time and getting gradually worse, there's an indication that something's wrong. Pay attention and perhaps talk to the person about it. Let them know that they're being seen this way, at least by you. You don't have to say everybody. I wouldn't say everybody. I would say, I'm noticing this, and I'm wondering, are you okay? You want to talk about it? Well, when you do, let me know. I'm here for you. However you want to say that, in such a way that you've planted a seed, because they are going to hit a bottom, and they're going to think, what do I do now? And they're going to remember, oh, you said that to them. Maybe they will come to you to ask for advice or to just vent, just process what they're going through, which may help them to know there is help out there in other ways besides you. The unnatural use of stimulants gains energy and confidence by reducing the body's energy. It's a trap, Compare this to the natural replenishment of energy, the reserves of energy that your body has through relaxation, sleep, daytime sleep, light, which is napping, light morning exercises, little stretching here and there, prayer, rest, harmony. Yeah, there's things are going well. That's resting, isn't it, when things are going well? Proper nutrition, healthy lifestyle. Well, that's the natural way for the body to replenish energy that's been used, let's say, the day before. Natural methods use and create energy reserves without allowing the excess buildup. Unorthodox or unnatural methods of stimulant use depletes body's energy reserves, requiring it to switch off to recover. So much is getting forced into the body that the body can't handle it and eventually shuts down, crashes. The natural process always works, not so much with the unnatural. The abnormal form causes tolerance and psychological dependence to develop. And so what happens? Well, there's an excessive depletion of the body's resources and damages the neurochemistry of the body as well. Dr. Inaba says, if you want to speed up, slow down. Well, it may not make sense, but in the light of what we're talking about, it does make sense. In other words, pause. Yeah. If you need to have a little extra confidence, if you need to have a little extra energy, well, slow down, pause, relax, take a break, pray. I always say pray. I always pray when there's stress stuff going on. Okay, I'm going to pray now. Yeah. Some people meditate. Well, their Bible does talk about meditative prayer. Meditative prayer is you're thinking, you're connecting with God in prayer, with the spiritual in prayer. Just plain meditation, you're zoning out, you're blanking. That's actually more damaging than helpful. Pray, prayerful meditation. Doesn't it feel good when you just take a break at the office and you get up and you go outside and stretch, maybe take a little walk, and then back to your desk again? Okay, I'm better now. I can go on for the rest of the day. That's a natural way of regaining that energy, of helping the body to restore itself in a way that the body is okay with. Take a pill, body's not okay with that. Yeah, you'll get that stimulant, but what about that crash? What about the tolerance that you'll need more pills? And what about that crash that's going to get deeper and deeper over time? Well, what does the Bible say about all this? Well, in Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 to 30 in the Remedy Bible, which is a paraphrase Bible, it says this, "So come to me, all who are tired, worn down, and exhausted from fear, selfishness, and fighting to survive on your own, and I'll give you rest. Join up with me and learn my methods, the principles upon which life is built to operate. For I am gentle and humble in heart, and you'll find healing and rest for your souls." Remember, your soul is your mind, your intellect, your will, your emotions. That's what makes up the soul. For joining up with me and living in harmony with the way life is designated or designed to operate is what makes life easy and lightens life burdens. Wow, that sounds just like what we've been talking about. Turn to God if you're having those difficulties. Let go and let God, as they say. Well, I hope this was helpful. Next time we're going to get into downers. May your troubles be more minor, blessings more, and happiness come through your door God bless. See you again.